What's up, YouTube? Today I have an amazing guest, Will, a good friend of the channel, good friend of mine. Uh, Maybe some of you guys are aware of him since he participates a lot in a lot of videos with Brian from another good friend of the channel, Sunday League Investors. It's a pleasure to have you with me. Before we start talking about your journey, because I think it's a very interesting one, it's a different one, let's say. Um, Actually introduce yourself to my viewers that may not know you.
Yeah. So my name is Will Wassmer. My IG handles wassabitrading. Um, Wasabi with two S's because my last name's Wassmer with two S's. So most people don't know that. I'm a diehard Arsenal fan. I became an Arsenal fan when I moved to London in high school, like back in 2010. And I lived in North London, so it was sort of you choose two teams. I always like choosing the local team, so it's that or Spurs. And I'll just say, thank God I chose Arsenal. But it started small, like just following the teams, reading, getting the free paper, reading it on the bus and stuff like that to pass the time. And then slowly I just became like absolutely obsessed with Arsenal. But I've always loved sports growing up. I'm pretty competitive myself. I played rugby, played competitive video games as well growing up. So kind of just was up my alley to eventually fall in love with soccer, and thank God that I like lived in London to really become like a huge fan of the sport.
Yeah, for sure. I believe I ended up meeting you because I was part of other Discord related with Pokemon cards, and yeah, then I start sharing stuff with you. You had the knowledge of soccer, which was quite not that typical, to be fair, on that Discord,
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
and yeah, we started chatting. Right now you are very engaged with the market, and this conversation will be a little bit normal than the other ones. Since I don't have five questions in particular to you, but I have a couple of topics that I would love to know your opinion. I think your history is interesting for one reason, for a lot of reasons, but for one in particular that I remember not that long time ago you are collecting just Pokemon and going very little into soccer. Right now you are kind of all in a good way on soccer cards, and for me it's crazy to see how much you end up evolving as a collector. Even in terms of knowledge, you seem much more selective in the cards you choose. I want to believe I had some to do with that,
You definitely did. You
but
definitely
I
did.
also think that is I'm joking. I also think it's up to you, of course. But yeah, share your journey in the hobby from the beginning, because I think a lot of my viewers can potentially can relate with you.
Yeah. So I mean, I mostly talked about how I just fell in love with soccer first, but you're right about the hobby. I originally started in Pokemon, and we met in a Pokemon Discord just really randomly in their like small sports Discord channel,
Yeah.
separate from everything else. But I'm actually just really relatively new to the hobby. So up until maybe the start of 2021, I didn't really do collecting, but like just like everyone kind of during that time, it was just fun to kind of see the nostalgia, watch, card openings. I think I started doing that like around the Christmas time, right before 2021. And then I got into Pokemon through one of my friends through gaming. So, I actually played Super Smash Bros. Melee competitively for the last 6 years of my life. That was like my big thing. You can see the GameCube controller like up here, I was ranked like 14 in tri-state in New York right before COVID and stuff like that, and actually aiming trying to get like top 100 in the world. And then I got into Pokemon, so I kind of just did that for fun because outside of just playing online, I kind of just missed more just interacting, talking with friends, and it was nice that I got to like catch up with one of my friends and talk about like another topic that he was really into, being Pokemon. So shout outs to Gerg for that. And he was full in on it like by the time I like started. So I kind of started like everyone else, ripping modern stuff, trying to do stuff. I learned a lot from that experience, even if I spent a lot on like trying to rip hidden fates to get the Charizard or Champion's Path to get the shiny Charizard and stuff like that. And I kind of realized like as I started doing it that when you watch your other friend be so into it in like different ways than just like the standard, like, it's a Charizard, oh, this card costs a lot. It just was very clear that like I did appreciate Pokemon and I do still want to collect it moving forward, but there was something like he was just on another level with it. And it was always like I was trying to figure out what I really enjoyed within the hobby because I was like so new at it. And looking back, kind of, I'm almost hitting a year now. When I switched to soccer, I switched around October because I remember, because that was my first PWCC auction. And I remember just switching to soccer because I've always loved the sport. As I said, I've been a fan since like 2010, and it just made more sense for me. It seemed more unexplored. It seemed more like I could like really grind something out. And I think that's what I really gravitated towards in the beginning. Like I joke around this with like all my friends. Like I'm such a filthy tryhard. You know, I love just grinding stuff out, and it just didn't feel like I could do that with Pokemon. But what I did with Pokemon was like experience ripping on a cheaper scale, which I'm very thankful for. And I was actually flipping Pokemon cards. So like, same thing as everyone else. And like, is like I was going through Facebook, looking at comps, going through TCG Player, shipping it out, learning the shipping process, learning how to negotiate. And I've always enjoyed that sort of business side of it as well. It just felt like it was pretty, especially, like as the 2021 went on, it felt pretty limiting with Pokemon. And I just didn't feel like I could really do much with it just because it was so explored. And so that's why I moved into soccer. And from there, we met on the Pokenomics Discord and everything. And it was kind of just like, wow, like I got to learn everything about this. And I think we were like, there were times where we talked like 7 days straight on train.
No, and what you said is very interesting, because I also collected Pokemon. I still have, I would say, a decent position in Pokemon. But what you said is interesting, and is spot on. That if people have experience with Pokemon, with potentially even American sports, NBA, in this case basketball, etc., all of those markets, is not that they are not great, because of course there is still some opportunity there. But when you compare with soccer is a giant and explored market. I mean, think about all the rookies we are still discovering. Well, if you go to the Pokemon market, to Magic the Gathering, again, of course, there is opportunity there, but there is a lot of people competing against you. The market is much more developed. What I'm trying to say? The soccer card market is still all about narratives. To be fair, I believe almost any speculative market is about narratives, but our market in particular, look, you see that at one point, I always bring this example. The Mundi Chrome Iniesta was the key rookie. Right now, seems like he's Super Liga de Estrelas, of course, because of rarity. I think a card that I guess we can talk about, since I know you end up owning one not that long time ago, a Benzema rookie from.
You can see the album up here.
I was actually looking at that, at the album. That I would say, what, 3 months ago, we did not even know about that card. Right now, seems like would be a new potential rookie for Benzema. And this just shows opportunity. This just shows that if you put time in the market, you potentially will find gems. And like I was saying, other markets like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, they are much more explored. I think I'm not sure if you feel comfortable to share this or not. Otherwise, I will cut. But I know you recently end up acquiring two Modric second year, but let's say rookie material stickers for Luka Modric from Croatia. Crazy difficult to find. But first of all, tell me your experience grinding, for example, that market. And that's a potentially holy grail for a lot of people in pre-modern, and you are in the market for 1 year and you already end up making, in my perspective, smart moves, but also amazing moves, because you have something that is so difficult to obtain. And you probably will agree with me. I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself very well today.
Yeah, no, I understand.
but you probably agree with me. Trying to do that on Pokemon, so much difficult. I mean, you probably will get completely push out of the market because there is people grinding all the time. In Pokemon, in Pokemon, in soccer, you end up grinding on that market. You end up finding a holy grail. So share a couple of thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think the other thing about Pokemon before we switch to soccer is like I learned a lot like from just I just love absorbing information. Like I'm very much like a person where once I commit to something, I'm just like I just want to learn about it. Like I just want to, and that was the same with Pokemon. So I had like all this knowledge from Pokemon, listening to Jake's channel, Pokenomics.
Will, let me say
Yeah.
one thing. That's true because I remember at the beginning and you always ask a lot of questions, which shows that you are trying to go deep into something, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something the way I'm wired. Even in crew and in high school, my coach had a rule where I only was allowed to ask one question per practice because I just asked too much and I just love talking as well. So, yeah, and I'm happy to share like the Modric stuff as well. But, the thing with it, like listening to the Pokenomics stuff, it was like they were talking about like Japanese cards, like super rare promos. And I just didn't feel that affinity to Japanese cards. Like I kind of like being able to like have more attachment to it. Like even though I can't understand French, I PCTR on Reed just because I love Arsenal. He is Arsenal incarnate essentially. And like I just didn't have that emotional attachment of Pokemon, or people are like, oh, like I love Poliwrath, or I love like these random Pokemon. And I just didn't feel that either. And so that's kind of why I moved into soccer, because I was just like, there's so many amazing players, like as you said, like Luka Modric. And I'm more than happy to share. Like I have it with me as well, like
Oh,
the
that's
two
great.
the two Luka Modrics. Yeah, I figured
Okay,
it'd
so
be
see that
yeah.
that will be the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Push a little
Oh,
bit.
there we go.
Okay. No,
But
but
really,
congrats, by the way. That's
oh, thank you.
a great sticker. I remember you talking with me when you bought those that you are not sure because PSA was not grading those at the time,
Yeah.
etc. But yeah, great stickers for sure. I think you should be very happy with them, even if you move them eventually. But it's still you should feel proud to own such a difficult sticker.
No, I'm really happy, and I haven't fully decided what to do yet, but I think that whether I'll keep one and move one, or keep both, or move both. Like I think that like the thing that I learned from Pokemon was trying to really figure out my goals, and ultimately my answer was none of my goals really matched Pokemon. And so that's why I moved to soccer, and then it was just about grinding it and then getting lucky. Like I'll be honest about the Modric. I All that I knew was that someone on your Discord, and feel free to plug in your Discord right here because I'll do it for you. But like was just talking about how like Luka Modric pre 2008 stickers are really hard to find, especially the
Yeah.
rookie. It's like Bigfoot. Like some people are like, I don't know if this actually
Will,
exists.
until this day, a lot of people think 2008 is the rookie year for Modric, because again, the 2006, 2005s are so difficult to find that that narratives almost make sense. 2008, okay, is not the true rookie, but is the rookie you may obtain, if that makes.
Yeah, it's the most accessible one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember scrolling through Facebook, like like, and again, it's not like I was like specifically searching for it. I just like was always, I always like, even though I don't message as much on Discord, I usually like am reading through all of it. And I just remember someone said that like 2 weeks ago, and then I was scrolling through Facebook. I usually like scroll through Facebook looking for like good deals and stuff like that. For fun, like as I sleep, it's just almost like therapeutic at this point. It kind of like helps me wind down from the day. And I saw someone post these, and I was like, these can't be real. No. And then it was like, holy shit, they are. And then I just got it, and like really was just like, wow, I can't believe that sort of happened. And I think that like I think what helped me was like really both just asking, always just trying to ask questions, like because like you guys will always have more experience than I will on things, even if it might not be in a specific card or a specific player. or even in the same market, I think there's so much to learn and just try to translate. And that's something I took from like playing Melee competitively. Like I would watch like
Will,
how Kobe
but
analyzed the game. Yeah. What are you
Will,
saying?
but I also ask questions every day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy the amount of stuff that I learn from my Discord, from people that I follow on Instagram, on YouTube, etc. Because that's the thing with soccer, is that we are still learning. I mean, I honestly believe a lot in this. I got a question the other day about, do you think the main rookies we have for the major players will still be the main rookies for them in 10 years from now? I honestly don't know. And I truly mean this. I mean, I think there is a scenario that not, because look, think about how narratives have been changing in so many cars, and I feel like Pelé, Maradona, Messi, all of those, even if they feel impossible, let's say, do I think another Messi rookie will be more important in terms of being iconic, not in terms of,
Yeah, of
not even
course.
in terms of price than the Messi ever on this? It's difficult to imagine at this point because the cards have a lot of lore history, but do I think it's impossible? No. And I think we all should be open mind to this type of stuff, being real. Actually, going into a player that you like quite a lot, Henry. Again, can I see the melhores equipos de Europa being more important than the Panini Foot? No, for a lot of reasons. Panini Foot, I believe, is a much better sticker in terms of eye appealing. I also like this from France. But can I see, for example, the melhores equipos de Europa Russian version maybe one day becoming the most expensive? I don't think that's impossible. It will all depend on pop reports. It will all depend how the newcomers into the market will look at things. Of course, they will look at things with taking a look at the history that we are creating right now, that other people created in the past, but things change very fast. That's going a little bit out of topic, but I think it's important to have an open mind in especially in soccer for the near future, because this is just the start of the market.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, a great example is like also just like none of the narratives are set in stone with soccer, unlike Pokemon, where it's just like really like it's just like more obvious. Like none of the narratives are set with soccer. Like a great example is still like the 2004 SP Authentic Ronaldo. It's just clearly 2003, and that was the one of the first things that like kind of like gave me a spark in the hobby, because I remember like messaging you at like 1 a.m. my time and was just like, wait, this is 2003, dude. And it wasn't because of like any of your videos, though I do love them and like watch all of them pretty much, but like it was just like I looked at the kit and was like, this looks like the 2003 kit. Like this looks like the upper, it looks like they just took the photo of the upper deck, and then I just like searched the kit.
All the cards are basically 2004 for Ronaldo, but them all the cards that
2003 2004 season
is exactly that.
Yeah.
They are 1 or 2 months apart of the upper deck cards, but the narrative on the upper deck cards for Cristiano Ronaldo is they are second year cards, and I agree with that. By the way, I think they are second. I'm sorry, second year season.
Yeah, second season is probably what we should adopt.
Exactly,
more so,
it's
yeah.
probably the correct way to put things. But in the other end, the SP is also a second year card, but the narrative on the market, second year season again, but the narrative on the market is completely different. People look at those cards not in the same level as they look at the upper deck, and do not make a lot of sense. Actually, I was talking with other people from I was talking with people from other sports, better saying, and they say, you know what, the SP brand tends to be even a little bit better than that upper deck base. So again, I'm not saying that all of the sudden people will realize this, because I was talking with FCC and they don't want to change the labels for that.
Yeah.
PSA, I have no idea. BGS don't even answer emails. So at this point, it's a guessing game. If the grading companies never change the label on that, maybe the market will never realize. But if you believe, like I believe, that those grading companies eventually will understand what's going on with the soccer card market, that could be even a good card to speculate right now. No financial advice, of course. It's just an example of a card that the narrative can change quite a lot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean,
I will try to put the card on the screen for people that
yeah, of course. No, I mean, I totally agree. And I think that that's the really interesting thing that I kind of realized. And it's funny because thinking of, I haven't thought of it like critically till now, but like it's almost was like I think that I took a lot of knowledge and lessons from Pokemon that were like, much, both mistakes wise and just lessons. Like I took it from Pokemon and then like applied it in soccer was probably the best way to put like how I started out, because it just felt like what I wanted to do again wasn't in Pokemon. Like what I want to do, what I can grind out wasn't there outside of just pure price points, which is still something that drives a lot of my decisions now. And I think that like the big thing that helped me grow my collection was really just like looking at price points and trading up and being okay with like being like, okay, this card, I was excited about it. I really love it, but like, what can I do with it if I did move it or if I did trade into it? And just really trying to trade up my collection. And I think there's almost, I don't want to say like there now I finally have cards where I could never just move it, but like very fun example.
Never say
Yeah,
never.
okay, that's the problem. That's the problem is like, for example, like I have this Thierry Henry like rookie. This is my first rookie. I got it, after my biggest sale to date still.
Congrats. It's a beautiful card.
Thank you. And if I know that I would trade it if I could get like an 8 or a 9 of it and throw other cards in. Like I think I was ready, and like if like someone was like, yeah, I want both Modric rookies and the 4 and I'll give you a 9 of the Thierry Henry, I might take that. It's just one of those things. And so I think that like I've had to say goodbye to a lot of cards, but it's always just like, what are the goals? And as I've kind of started collecting more in soccer, it's just gotten narrower and narrower. Like right now, it's like pretty much just like key sets and then like Henri, Messi, Ronaldo, Pele, Maradona, pretty much. But I've only really entered Messi, Ronaldo at this point.
Hey guys, quick pause on the video. I hope you are enjoying this talk with Will. For me, was an amazing one, and I think it's important to have different people. Of course, having a very experienced collector tends to be great, but a collector that is just starting and is already doing very well, I think is also quite motivational almost. Yeah, I really enjoyed this talk. I hope you also enjoyed this talk. And if that's the case, do not forget to leave a like on the video. Now, two quick things. I have a Patreon community that tends to be the best way to support my work on YouTube. I put exclusive content there, actually a lot of content, a new Q&A every Wednesday and the extra audio on Saturday. So, in the last couple of months, I end up answering more than 300 questions related with the card market. And if you want to learn more about the soccer card market, I think that's a nice place. For me, the question you have to ask yourself is, well, first of all, do you like my content on YouTube? If yes, you probably like my content there. And second, do you want to learn more about the soccer card market? Because, like I was saying, you can ask me questions direct. So, if those two questions are yes, I think you should at least consider to take a look at my Patreon community. That being said, you need to pay around $10. Maybe $10 is a lot of money to you. If that's the case, one thing that is totally free is actually my Discord server. We are more than 600 members. It's even crazy to think about, honestly. And look, like I said, Patreon $10. So I understand if you cannot join the Patreon and don't feel pressure by any means. But in the other end, not joining the Discord makes no sense since it's free and it's an amazing place to learn and share. And yeah, I think check both links. If you cannot afford the $10, totally fine, but at least join the Discord. Let's continue with the conversation. No,
Yeah.
Will, one thing that is super important to always have in mind, and sometimes I also forget about this, is first of all, you need to have fun, being honest. You need to enjoy what you collect. Let's say Modric is not a player that you really care that much, and look, that will be fine. Yeah. Well, I think what you should do is make a plan to transform those Modrics into things that you believe will be much more relevant for your collection. Of course, like I said, keep in mind that those Modrics are quite rare, so there is a scenario that if you regret selling those, will be very difficult to obtain one later. So there is also that I think you should consider. but if that's not a player that you really want to collect, and if you are more a collector than an investor, this is the type of decision that I personally love to make, because I have this that I can transform into something that I enjoy much more. But this is a battle almost that I face every day. You face every day. I mean, we are in a market that we don't have correct answers. I mean, sometimes I look at my collection, I think maybe I should just collect Lionel Messi. Maybe I should just collect Messi and Ronaldinho, players that I really care about. Other times I wake up and I think, you know what, I will try to collect the top 10 players ever, the top 20 players ever, or the top 20 players from pre-modern. So my mind also changes a lot of time, and I think this is normal. Okay, what I think is important is at least to have some type of core in your collection, some type of, okay, 70% I know what I'm doing, 30% is a little bit over the place, and I think that's fine. I'm not giving you any type of advice, because like I said, I also struggle with this.
Oh,
I'm
of course,
just
yeah.
sharing with you how I tend to deal with this type of stuff. I have a core collection basically with Maradona, Messi, etc., then navigates a little bit over the place even in other markets. So yeah,
No,
I
I
thought.
completely agree. I mean, I think that like having like a core collection or core principles or rules is what's really helpful. At least it was really helpful for me when I started collecting and moving into like bigger cards, because like I just noticed like it's almost like I don't worry about the budget, but I'm worried what the budget's going into, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense,
Where
yes.
and I didn't have like a lot of capital, just like very honestly about that. This is kind of just like stuff that I had a little bit extra, but I really wanted to kind of just like really build up rather than just throw money at it, because personally I kind of find the like journey to get to the card also really fun.
Is the best, Will, is the
Yeah,
best
it's so
part.
fun.
Is the
Yeah.
best part. I mean, I remember I was trying to make a deal on my Ibrahimovic hook. Took me a lot of time. Actually, he's another member from Discord, but we ended up not reaching a deal, and was a back and forth. You actually ended up being part of the deal
That was very funny.
indirect. But that grind is a lot of fun, to be honest. I mean, the my happy moment probably was when he said yes, not when I end up receiving the card, if that makes sense. This
No,
maybe some people
100%.
will not understand what I'm trying to say, but basically completing a goal. Basic why video games, they put missions, they put
Yeah.
goals. It's because they know that when you reach something, there is some type of dopamine in your brain that actually makes you enjoy the moment. And with cards is no different. I mean, the grind is amazing. And with cards, we have that type of stuff in multiple ways. For example, and I guess you can share your experience with that, but when you bought the Modric, was an amazing feeling for sure. But when you got the grades, was another amazing feeling, because, for example, I believe one is an 8, right? So
Yeah, one
that's
is an eighth. Yeah.
the top the top grade, and
Yeah.
that's that the journey, the I call that the path. I think that's the thing we need to enjoy. I already enjoy a lot, but we need to enjoy even more, because that's the beauty of collecting, at least for me, of course.
No, I mean, for me, I'm the same way. Like, I love the Henri not because it's like worth a certain amount, or I would love it regardless. Let's be honest. But I partially love it because it was the accumulation of like me kind of truthfully getting a little bit lucky with the treble market and that sort of boom in early 2022. But like I
What
used
set are you talking about?
the 2018 Panini trebles.
Never
Never heard of
no.
it. Yeah. But I remember selling an Mbappe purple for, at the time it went for a lot. And that kind of, I was like looking at that card and was like, does this really fit my collection? And I was like, you know what, this could do a lot for my collection, and this could really help jumpstart a lot of things I want to try. Not all of it went well, but one of the best things to come out of it was that I was able to get this PSA 4 Thierry Henry rookie. And you know, it's part of that journey. It kind of accumulated into like all of that, where, you know, I looked at treble like in December, it was like, these aren't like $10 cards, like these are like $20-$30 cards, and then it shot up, right? And I was like, Jesus Christ. But like, you know, that it was like all the work that I did with Pokemon. I looked at treble, I was like, these price points are a little off. I got them because I thought they were really cool, and then all of a sudden I had to say goodbye. And so the Henri is kind of the accumulation of that. But same with the Modric.
But Will, think about this. Another thing that I also struggle, so maybe I'm pretty sure you also relate with me on this, is never feel ashamed of selling something, honestly. And sometimes I feel bad because, oh, I already shared this card on my Instagram or something like that. Now I'm selling the card. But look, it's your money in the end. No one paid those Pioneer Troubles for you. No one paid that Henry for you. You are the one that end up paying those, right? So you have all the rights to keep moving, to keep buying. I know this seems very logic, but sometimes we tend to get caught into this, or maybe I should not sell. No, I mean, it's your journey. You do you. If you feel that, you know what, Pioneer Travel, great set, beautiful set, but my entry point was so good. And I like pre-modern more, probably. So maybe converting those cards into Thierry Henry, even if 10 years from now I look and Pioneer Travel is still doing crazy well, does not matter. I at least end up look, taking profit is always good, no matter what. I also sold stuff in the past that right now are much more expensive, but I also did the opposite. So look, it is what it is. You need to be okay with your decisions, because like I was saying a couple of minutes ago, we are in a market that we don't have correct answers. We try our best, and there is a lot of luck also involved, you know. Of course, luck is also a mix of a lot of work most of the time, you know. But yeah, I mean, great stuff that you did with Pioneer Travel. I still like the set, but I'm happy for you that you sold Pioneer Travel and got something that you like more. I think that's amazing, honestly.
And I'll say this, one is I do want to I'm slowly trying to get back into the set again. It was just, I was in it for, the margins were just too good to say no, and it completely jump started my collection. So, you know, it was just kind of thinking long term for that. And I think the other thing is like, yeah, you're right. Like you can, and this is something I always like try to remind myself, is like I can only just make the best decisions in the moment. Like if that Mbappe purple treble like what goes for like, you know, crazy amounts in like 2 years, it's like, yeah, that's good. Like, and I think a lot of people will be like, oh man, like I could have held it, but like I think I made the best decision in the moment. And the other thing is like, I personally really want, like, I like my collection to be personally really small, and I realized that through soccer is like I've was never like a master set collector in Pokemon. I didn't understand it. It just seemed like too many cards to really like keep track of and appreciate on like a day-to-day basis. So like I like it really to keep things really small. And so, and I also don't have the like income or anything to really like just keep getting stuff and holding it and then just keep getting stuff. So like a lot of what my collection is both stuff I really like and learn to appreciate in the moment, but like for a lot of it, I'm okay saying bye to it because I need to continue funding more cards, like more crazy cards. And like my kind of rule is I have something on my bedside table where it's just a Pokemon like ETB. Like this is just like the bottom of an ETB case, and it's whatever slabs like fit in here is like kind of what I think as like my core collection. You know, it expanded because I'm trying to finish the like Thierry Henry Monaco set. You know, I kind of want to get all of the Monaco gear from Thierry Henry. But like I always just think of this like bedside table. You'll see your card in, but it just says like Will's PC. And this is kind of what I think of as like my core collection. It doesn't stay in my case. It's on my bedside. I can like shuffle through it if I want to. But I don't need anything like big or crazy.
No, yeah. No, I get that completely. Look, your journey has been quite good. because I have been following your journey. I saw you starting with very little, and right now you have amazing cards. And I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about people that just buy, and buy. And I've been pushing this idea more and more lately. Having a cash flow is so important, and also underrated to certain extent, because some people, they just keep buying, First of all, that's bad in my perspective, because you can burn out really quick in the hobby if you never saw any type of return, if you never saw it. Look, I bought this card for $10. Right now I'm getting 20. I think that's important to keeping you motivated. So I'm not worried about you, because I know you are doing exactly that. I'm not worried about you. I'm just putting an example to all my viewers, to be fair. I'm much more worried about viewers that I also know that they just buy and buy. Look, if they have the cash power to do that, in the end, their money, their choices, of course. But
Cash power is a good word.
I honestly think that is super important to keep selling and buying, because especially if you just buy, you don't even understand the market that well, because your perspective is basically as a buyer. I mean, you pay the market all the time, or you even maybe you win a couple of auctions, etc. But when you start selling, you understand, okay, you know what? My collection maybe not worth 10K, maybe only 5K, because the way you tend to evaluate things versus the way the market sees things are quite different. And that's why I think buying and selling is so important, because it gives you different perspectives from as a buyer and as a seller.
No, I completely agree. I was going to say that. And I think one of the best things that, like I'm really happy, like my friend, Brian, Sunday League Investors, like really encouraged was starting to go to shows, setting up as vendors even sometimes, because you kind of just learn what the market looks like. And I feel like that's almost where it was very funny, because I feel like before I started doing that, I was very much on the whole, like, it was very clear I just watched all your videos, if it is the best way to put it. And I think that I started diverging maybe a little bit in my like thought and like collecting philosophies once I started going to shows and realizing that like you and me, like I think we agree on a lot. Like I still mainly do pre-modern, and I love it. And I think it's like my favorite probably. And then there's a lot of potential in it, but it was so eye-opening to like go to a show and people asking me about like my PSA 9 Sapphire base Holland rookie and skimming through like a SGC 10 top 1 Thomas Muller rookie, and it was just really eye-opening. Like I was in LA and like they just like and it's that's sort of where I start to differentiate, where, me being in the US, having a lot more opportunities to travel to shows and stuff like that, I had to start to curate my collection a little bit for trades. And I think that like, when you don't have cash power, you can at least trade and like have to be patient to find other fans, because you'll find people as giddy as I am about Arsenal for whatever team there was. Like I remember picking up like a leaf auto of Mount and KDB, and I'm like, oh wow, normally there aren't two good autos, but this one's pretty cool. I'm meh on both players. Like I'm an Arsenal fan, right? They've tortured me before. But I remember being at like Mint Collective and someone scrolling through my case and was like, wow, my favorite team's Chelsea and KDB is my favorite player in the Prem. Like this card was meant for me. And, it was just one of those things. And we did a trade deal. And I think that like going to shows really showed that there was like a difference between show cards and like, I call them like eBay cards or online cards. And I think like that's where our conversations, I think, got really interesting also moving forward, because it became more of a dialogue where I could, tell you what I saw at shows, give you my thoughts of it, and then also hear your thoughts, where I'm like, yeah, like that pre-modern card is great. Like, don't get me wrong, but people like flip through it as if it's like nothing, as if it's like a base card. And it was like, then you're not able to make moves. And I think that was the tricky part, is because like if you don't have cash power, the best way to get, I think, the value that, at least for me, and I have a lot of fun with this, is through trading. But if you don't have cards that people want to trade, then it's really hard. And I knew that I was kind of weak on the online selling thing, like, and I didn't want to take on fees and eBay fees and risk auctions. Like I've still never ran something for auction to this day. Eventually it will probably change, but right as of right now, that's what it's that stood that
Yeah.
that's what it is. It was what I'm saying. And so I needed to like change kind of my strategy on what cards I take in, what cards I trade for, because I have access to US shows, which is something that you don't. So I completely understand your point of view, where you have the entire world as your viewing party for these like really amazing pre-modern cards, mega crack inserts, all of that, where
No,
someone at like in LA might just like flip through it.
well, for sure, and that's a great point. Was actually one of the topics that I had to discuss with you, your experience at shows. But you are completely correct. I mean, my vision about the market is not perfect by any means. I mean, I live in Europe. I don't go to shows in America. Of course,
Mhm.
I lack knowledge on that front, and I'm aware that most of those shows they have a lot of ultra modern, probably a bit of pre-modern and a bit of vintage, but sometimes not even a bit, because I also have other people that tell me exactly the same thing. And if you go to a lot of those shows, I understand that you need to adapt a little bit your position in the market. Okay, maybe I still have a core in pre-modern and vintage, but I need to have more liquidity, because like you said, I mean, the more niche you go on the market, and for a lot of people going niche is going pre-modern and going vintage, the more niche you go in the market, less liquidity most likely you will get. If you have, like you are saying, a land rookie, well, I suspect the liquidity will be much better than a Thomas Muller rookie. But what is the better card? That will be much more up to debate. So yeah, I would love to know a little bit more of your perspective on that front. If you think that pre-modern and vintage, let's put vintage, because I think most people
Yeah.
just look at old stuff that is not ultra modern like vintage, is growing on shows. And I would love also that you share what you have been doing with Brian from Sunday League, because I see you everywhere nowadays on videos, on whatnot, etc. Yeah, basically that your experience with Brian, in this case with the Sunday League Investors channel, and if you believe that pre-modern vintage are growing in American shows.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. So let's start with the pre-modern and vintage question first, and then go to the question with Brian. And really, I think with pre-modern and vintage, I do think there is a huge space for it, but it's also like I think that what's dependent on it is just continuing education on it. Like that is the huge thing. And then trying to find the bridge from the like niche to the like niche, but it's something that is more palatable to them. So like a good example of that is like I think that a thing that people really fail on, like not fail on, but need to understand with soccer is like there's just so many amazing players that people don't talk about. Like I still think people don't talk about Muller, Gerrard, Lampard enough, just to name three off the top of my head. But even after that, you have Eto'o, you have, Ibra, even like people don't talk about Rooney, Bergkamp,
Sure.
great example, Vieira, right? And I think that it's like that's going to take a long time. And so when I think that like people find good deals on those players, but it's like, what's the education point of it? Like, what's the game plan on it? And I realized with the Muller one, for example, like it was a great card. I still think it was one of the best cards I had at the time in my collection.
You have a SCC 10 Muller rookie, right?
I used to. I traded it in
Oh, you
Dallas.
traded.
Actually,
Okay.
yeah. But
But
the thing is,
a 10 is crazy difficult
it was a
on
pop
any
one.
Muller.
Yeah, it was a pop 4 on PSA. And that's what I tried to explain to people, but like people didn't really understand that. So what I started to do with like pre-modern, because I also just didn't want to risk myself with rookies. I'm a serial rookie skeptic. I'm very skeptic on a lot of them. Even the ones I like, I'm skeptic on,
You are
um,
talking about new players, right?
new players, yeah,
Okay.
rookies. Yeah. And so like what I started doing was trying to find out where in pre-modern I can start kind of moving the needle right? And so I think with pre-mod, I can speak a little bit about vintage, but most of my experience is in pre-modern, so I just want to be like completely transparent about that. But like I started doing like WCCFs. I started focusing on Messi and Ronaldo, where it's like there is that education portion of it. There is the not true rarity, but scarcity of stuff like mega crack inserts, WCCF in high grades, and focusing on that where someone's looking through and they'll stop because it's like Messi, it's Ronaldo, it's one of the top guys, but they don't know about it. And then that's where I come in and I'm like, this card's really cool. Like these were like my pit, like I love WCCF, but I've talked about it so much that one Brian, like Brian's like, yeah, let's stop talking about WCCF because you bring it up a lot. But two is like, I have a pitch for it. I'm like, oh, this is a really great card. Like this is like kind of think of like FIFA Ultimate Team meets trading Japanese arcades meets like trading cards. I have a video I pull up and shows them how people are doing it. Yeah, and that's what it was.
Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
the thing about the double CCF or CCF, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is most cards they lack strong rarity.
Yeah,
I would not even say true rarity because that's so rare to find in a card. And I would say even strong rarity. But of course, you can always make an argument. Then condition rarity could be a thing. I mean, if we end to be honest, the reality is the true rookie. True again is always a weird expression. For Benzema is the 2005 WCCF card, yep. And it is what it is. People may like it, may not like it, but it's the first release. Do I think that's a great buy in a PSA 5? Honestly, I don't think so, because I think more of those will keep appearing in the market. But if you have a 9, well, maybe that's a grade that you should hold, because maybe the condition rate will be so strong. I don't know, by the way. I'm just giving an example. So yeah, I mean, WCCF is a difficult set to talk about for one reason. I was talking about WCCF 2 years ago. And at that time, those cards are insanely cheap. I remember buying Benzema's for $2,
And now it's like 30 now or something like that.
Exactly. So people say, oh, I bought a Benzema for $20, for $30. Do you think it was a good deal? For me, it's difficult to say yes, because I still have the $2 price in my mind. I remember I was. I know this is probably even a mistake on my side, to be honest with you, but when I saw something go up almost 10x, or even it seems like even more than 10x, seems difficult to accept that right now is still a good buy. You know what I'm trying to say?
I would say that too. I mean, from my experience, and this is just one experience, right? So take it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't think I made crazy margins or even had good margins with WCCF. I was more giving it as an example of there is this certain piece where you just need education to bridge the gap. But if the gap is too big, you're just never going to get there, right? But the thing I will say is, even if I might not, WCCF was an experiment I ran, and I realized, like, similar to what you said, the price point of like Benzema's being like $30, $20, and then you factor in grading, you factor in SGC versus PSA, all of that stuff. It's not really favorable margins for WCCF, but it moves quickly. And that's what I've noticed, because the gap is so small that I can bridge it with me talking about it. And so that's kind of what I've tried to think about with like other key things. And I think it's like, we talk a lot about fundamentals, and maybe one thing, and I don't have a word for it, that I've been starting to think of more is like, what are cards that are instantly understandable? Like, you can understand how cool it is.
Yeah, I actually have a video about this soon. I'm actually working on a video. I'm actually working on, not sure if it's exactly what you're trying to say, but I think it's very related with that. The title of the video, I still have no idea, but it will be something like this. The more you have to explain a card to other person, the less desirable that card is for me. And I will explain you why. I show you a Cristiano Ronaldo, a rookie, Mega Cracks card. I don't need to explain you why that card is expensive that much. I tell you, first card for Cristiano Ronaldo. If you are engaged with the market, you automatically assume, oh, okay, I understand why this is an important card. I mean, is
Mhm.
the first card, is the rookie. Then I can say only released in Portugal. So I don't even need to explain you a lot of stuff. Or I say Pop Report 200, for example. I don't know, I'm talking from the top of my head, but I don't need to explain you a lot. Then if I have a mid-tier player, second year card for that player, how can I how can I convince you to buy that card? I need to explain you a lot of stuff. If you think about it, okay, this player was important because of this. Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't need to explain you why Cristiano Ronaldo
Yeah,
is
like someone
important.
like maybe like Deco or Figo.
Okay, now
Yeah.
why should I buy this instead of a rookie? Oh, because the second year maybe a little bit a better card in terms of high appealing. But as you can see, I'm giving you a lot of explanation. A good card do not need a lot of good explanation. You have that Henri Panini Foot 97. You can explain that card to me very easy. Well, first release for Thierry Henry in France. Panini Foot, one of the most important sets in pre-modern. Thierry Henry, the best Premier League player ever. So you say this type of stuff, and I would go, okay, I already understand why that card is important. We may make a deal or not. That's a different conversation. But the card that do not need a lot of explanation, I think is something that we need to think about more, because sometimes we buy cards that if in the future you want to sell, do you think you need to explain a lot why the card is a good buy? Because if you think that's the case, probably not a great buy. But then there is a couple of things that I also want to share with you and with all the viewers, that there is also the education part, of course. Okay, so there is a lot of legends in pre-modern, in vintage, that I agree with you. They are undervalued. So we need to educate the people on those players. We need to educate the people on their cards. And that's also great and important. And I also say one thing, that education tends to be the solution for all problems, not only in cards, in life. I mean,
Yeah.
a country that have great education normally is a country that is very well run, a country with poor education normally is a complete mess. And this is a logic that I apply in life. Education tends to be the solution for all the problems. And if you believe in cards with great fundamentals, and great fundamentals is if the player is important in terms of history, if the items you are targeting are rare.
It's the intangibles.
Exactly.
That's what I'm thinking of, or
So
at least the best way I can put it.
If the item you are targeting is rare or not, through rarity, condition rarity, if you have good fundamentals in what you are investing, education, in my perspective, will be a great friend that you have in the long run.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, and I think you should run your Discord ad soon, because I'll have to just hop off for a meeting quickly, but it should be like problem. 15 minutes, so I'll be back. But I like to kind of like tie this up in a bow before I talk about like sort of my friendship and hang out with Brian and stuff like that, and going to shows more. Like I agree, like it's those intangibles where it's like, when I'm talking about a card like WCCF, for example, like I'm not necessarily trying to sell them to it, but it's more just like, I want you to see how cool this card is. But people like inherently like are sensitive to that, like emotionally, like they can sense it. And they can, and you can't interpret other people's perception of it or feelings, right? You can only control your intentions, but you can't control how someone receives it. And I can completely agree if it's someone interpreted it as like, wow, you were really pushing that card hard on me, or really trying to sell it off. And it's like, I'm not, but I get why you like think that, right? Like I just really love it personally. I think it's really cool. But I totally agree. But there, like when you look at cards where it's like, without even saying anything, someone can understand it. Like I think that's so cool. Like I like two very different examples. This is like the only vintage card I have, but it's like, all I have to say is Graduation Pele. And it's such a sick card. It's green, it's color match, it's great, right? It looks sick. Great example of the similar thing, your previous card. I don't even have to say, wow, it's so cool that Ronaldo captained, Portugal for the Euros, which I find cool, but I don't need, it's not necessary. they know that it's numbered. They know that it's the first, modern card. They see the color match. They know who Ronaldo is. Both of those cards, one vintage, one modern, they have those sort of intangible, like X factor to it. Where it's just like it's instantly understandable versus like maybe a card that's like more obscure is like this. Love this card, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but I would have to explain this card versus those other two.
But I love that card.
Yeah, no, amazing card.
I actually like that Messi quite a lot.
I do too. It's I mean, it's in the Will's PC box right now, so
that's a good choice for sure, and they are going up in price quite a lot, honestly. So the last question, the last topic I want to talk with you is basically your experience working with Brian, a good friend of the channel, Sunday League Investors. Tell us about, because like I was saying, I see you everywhere on whatnot, on I don't know, YouTube videos. You are quite popular, so
yeah, it's weird to think about. Like, people are like, oh, I see you in the YouTube. I'm like, oh right, I forgot about that. But yeah, no, Brian's a really good close friend of mine. We ended up actually meeting, like, I didn't realize he lived in like so close to me, and so that's how we became really good friends. I actually, funny enough, he was doing a YouTube live and I had a very long-ended niche specific question as I was starting to get into soccer, and I like super chatted him, and it was just so long. He was like, you know what, like just DM me, I'll answer it there. And then we started talking, and I'm like, oh wow, you're like the town over from me. And so that's how we started hanging out. We met at the Fairfield show in California last, like, I think November. Yeah. And it's sort of been there. And so, lately, especially like on Whatnot and stuff and in videos, it's been, you see me, and then John also is another one, JB Collects USA. And so it's kind of like us three, because we live in this like straight line where, I go to pick up John and we go to Brian, and like we're all like, Brian's like 15 minutes away from me. Like, that is how close we are. So that's why, even for Whatnot, like it's funny that I'm like helping with like his, like some of the Whatnot stuff and all of that now, but like I kind of just want, like, I went there just to hang out, because I recently moved to California during the pandemic for my girlfriend's PhD program. And so, like, I didn't know a lot of people in the area and stuff like that. And Brian was sort of in a similar boat. So it was always like, hey, like, you don't have a friend here. I'm like, yeah, you don't have a friend here. And so that's kind of how it happened. And so we met at a show.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing, honestly. That makes me really happy too, because I did not know the history that I knew you and him are friends, but I did not know the history that well. And I think that's fantastic, honestly. I don't have a lot to say about that. Like I was saying, Brian already was part of this podcast. I had a really nice conversation with him, and I think in the future he probably will be back again. But yeah, I mean, I think you and him have been doing great work, honestly, and the Whatnot stuff is not for me. I don't buy a lot there. And I think it's fair to say that it's a lot of ultra modern, that breaking stuff like that, right? I remember you guys posting about the pre-modern sale there, and I saw a couple of Messi rookies. I went and I bid, but I never won anything. Maybe because I'm really cheap. I'm always trying to buy under comps, and if that not happen, I'm not buying. But I actually was bidding in a couple of Brian. Not, like I said, I'm not there a lot, but I was 2 or 3 times maybe, and I never won anything. So to finish, actually, the podcast, I'll always give this question, this topic to the person. What is your unpopular opinion or a what take? That in Discord we have a what take.
Oh, I know. I love that one.
Category. So this is
Um,
basically a what take, but live.
yeah. And before I answer that, the one thing I'll add with like with Brian is like obviously like I edited some of his videos and I film it, I do the thumbnail still. But really like in the end, like it's just like it's just like a lot of it I'm viewing it as like it's fun, like we're working together, both John and I are like I guess now unofficially part of LSI. We joke that Troy's part of LSI, and I think Troy's whatnot video is like a good example of that. But really like how I think of it, like working with Brian is like it's the friendship first, and it's just like me hanging out with my friend, and we
Yeah.
happen to just are doing it together. And so like even if it was like, hey, like I need help, like could you just like come swing this, like come like help break with me, or just like sometimes like I won't even sell anything at whatnot, or I'll like sell like I don't know like a $10 card on it on there. It's like I'm just hanging out with my friend, and that's kind of how I really view it. And same with like the shows and stuff like that. And I think that like working with Brian, especially on the videos and stuff, was like another way for me to enjoy a card show, because it's almost like it's a lot when you're there for like several days and all you're thinking about, because I'm very far from being a whale. All you're thinking about is, oh, what's the line here? Should I trade for this? Should I spend this money? Do I have that money? Obviously I don't overextend myself, but when you're thinking about that constantly, it shows are still fun, but it's exhausting. So it was nice to like break that up with like like, hey, like let's talk about the content, let's talk about this challenge. And I've always done that. Like I used to run a podcast and like do content for like Super Smash Brothers, so it's always just something that I like talking about with Brian. And it's again just more just like friends chilling, and I'm like along for the ride, and I appreciate like the opportunities that and like the connections that he's like helped me with, just because he knows a lot of people. But in the end, it's just like I just think of it as like I'm hanging out with a friend and we're just like having fun, and that's
No,
really it.
I
Yeah.
I understand that. I would love to have a friend on my area that I can share basically the hobby stuff,
Yeah.
and that's something of course I miss. Most of the friends I have in the hobby, they are online. It's not like in Portugal it's that
Mhm.
easy to find people that collect. I also actually I know some people that collect in Portugal, but yeah, I would love to have someone that is really engaged like me in the hobby, that I could share thoughts in real life, so I think it's amazing that you have that option with Brian, and Brian with you, of course.
Yeah, and John and even Troy as well. I mean,
Yeah,
it's I just
the
got
only
really
reason
lucky, honestly, there.
the only reason I did not say John is because I know, I believe I know the person you are talking about, but I don't know
Oh
him.
yeah, no, of course, of course. I just want to,
But
yeah.
I assume he's another soccer card collector, right?
Yeah, JB collects USA. No, really, really good guy. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of been like a 3-4 group since Troy's gotten back as well. Like Troy's over the bridge, so he's like maybe 30 minutes away, but that's still really close for like all things considered. So yeah, it's really fun. And then for the hot take, I think I've mentioned this before, but I think my hot take personally is I'm such a, and it's so funny because there's a lot of fans of it in the US. But I'll just say it first and I'll explain my reasoning. I'm a big like Serie A hater, at least when it comes to like the hobby. Like I don't think the players are bad. Like I think all of them, like there are a lot of amazing players. But when thinking about it in the hobby space, and there's so many Italian Americans that like I feel like there's a disproportionate amount of Serie A fans that I see at shows regularly. But like coming from it, like looking at the outside, because I'm not Italian myself, like I don't get it. I really don't. Because it's like for hobby specific, like I think Italy's a good league, like solid league. Obviously it's one of the top 5 ones. There's lots of history with it, but like for the hobby, it's just not an interesting something I find interesting, because like players just kind of all just trade around in a circle, where it's like, okay, like they're in Juve, and then now, oh, they're in Inter Milan, and then oh, they're in AC Milan, and then now they're back at Juve, and I find that so weird. And for me as like a diehard fan, like I don't know how Italian fans do it. One thing where it's like I would hate and burn the jersey if like a player went to like a rival team. Like my first Arsenal jersey was Robin van Persie. I wore it once and then he transferred to Man United. And I didn't wear it again. You know, that was my
Great
first
player.
Arsenal jersey. Yeah, great player. I love, like, amazing player, but like I just don't understand how players can like switch rival teams so easily. And I think for when you're thinking of like the hobby sake, it's like players disappear. I kind of consider it like a void. Like until they get out of Serie A, I don't really consider them relevant because like they just need to win the Champions League, and that's like the only point of relevancy.
Yeah,
And yeah, and
I
I
was
find like
with
French teams interesting because like at least the rookies leave. Like, you know, like no one leaves Serie A, and that's a like I find that uninteresting. And like in the hobby, it's just like no one will know about it.
it's, again, that's a hot take, so it is
Yeah.
what it is on that,
Yeah,
right?
I know. I know. Well, you asked for a hot take, right?
No, and look, I was talking with James the other day. Sometimes when people criticize a hot take, that's a good hot take because
Yeah.
if you go to my Discord and you put, you know what, pre-modern is undervalued, everyone will hit the button.
Yeah, people just want the emotes at that point.
Yeah, people will say, yeah, you are correct. But if you think about that's not a what not a what take. I mean, the hot take will be go there and say, you know what, ultra modern, not modern, pre-modern is trash. Ultra modern is the way to go. I don't agree, but that's a what take.
That's a hot take. Yeah.
But about Serie A, I kind of agree with you, but not sure if I agree 100%. I
That's
agree
fair.
with
Yeah.
you in the sense that right now, I also don't think Serie A is that good of a league, being real. I like what AC Milan have been doing recently. I think they have a young team that can potentially, in the next 2-3 years, maybe do a good run in Champions League, etc. I also think Inter is decent. Juventus, actually, I'm liking Di Maria, Pogba. I think all of those
I think
players
those are good transfers.
are
From
quite
like a soccer fan sense, yeah, I think that they're
solid.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you love pre-modern, I think Serie A is a very important league because you had at one point Ronaldo, Zidane, Thierry Henry, or Pirlo,
Totti,
Totti, Buffon, all of
Maldini,
those
yeah.
legendary players playing there, and people can make a solid argument. And in the 80s and 90s, probably the best league was Serie A. I believe people end up calling the Serie A the mini World Cup, and to be fair, it made sense because you had all the players from Holland. I'm talking about Van Basten, Rijkaard. Basically, you have all the elite players there. Of course, I relate more with the Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi era. So I really end up enjoying the La Liga time from 2009 until 2018, because for me it was amazing to see Cristiano Ronaldo versus Messi at their peak, at their prime, in my perspective. And of course, Real Madrid and Barcelona also had incredible teams. I mean, you had Modric in one side, Iniesta in the other side. What was like an amazing time to watch football in Spain. But you can make an argument that, yeah, that was great. And if you just look at GOATs, okay, it's difficult to debate against Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. But on the 90s, Serie A was insane. I mean, because you knew that, of course, Real Madrid or Barcelona, they will
No,
end up
but
winning
they
it.
definitely were. I think there's so much history with Serie A. I think the
Exactly.
tricky part that I have with it, outside of like, again, like I became a fan in 2010 for context. So the player that cuts off where I've never seen him or like was Ronaldinho, actually. Very funny. That's the player where everyone loves him and I'm like, he was great. I love him too, but I don't have that connection, because I like that's the player. That's kind of where I put the cutoff. Like the Zidane kind of goes the other way. Ronaldinho goes the other way. But I agree there's like a lot of history with it. I think that like the thing that I worry about.
Wait. But do you remember Zidane and not Ronaldinho? Because Ronaldinho was after Zidane, at least in his prime.
No, yeah. So the only reason Zidane goes that way is because of the Thierry Henry connection. because I know
Okay.
Thierry Henry, I know the France World Cup and all of that, and I think that that's interesting. But again, like it's those players, Zidane, Ronaldinho, I think they're
Okay.
like the cutoff for me, not in favorite player, but like of knowledge of experiencing, the true fandom of following those players.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting
yeah,
because I always assume that everyone saw Ronaldinho, but it's not the case. I mean, I'm
yeah,
probably older than you, so that's why. So you also never saw
like the golden
Ronaldo,
age of, yeah,
the Brazilian
Ronaldo.
one, right?
R9 is a good example, and I miss the whole like Serie A glory age as well. And so I think that's like definitely a factor of my thinking. I think that like when it comes to like the hobby right now, I just, when you look at the players, I feel like outside of this really interesting niche enclave of Italian Americans that are consistently following Serie A, like, and it's very admirable. It's they follow it as much as I follow like Premier League, for example. I think that it's just really interesting to see how their excitement translates to the hobby. And you have these like really amazing players like Oshiman, Lautaro Martinez, who it's like they're not going to be on the spotlight because they play in, like, because of Serie A. Like I think
I
like, yeah, and that's interesting. But some of their stuff is really hard to find. Like Lautaro Martinez, I think might be a very popular person at the World Cup because Messi's going to be assisting him. But people will know about him because of Argentina, not because of Inter.
Well, don't you think that maybe your hot take was more related with new players in the sense that maybe I could be correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but maybe the rookies from Italy, basically, they could be a little bit over valued if that makes sense, since the league is not there, is not the same as it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, for
Oh,
example.
yeah. I'm talking more. That's why I was saying like specifically trying to phrase it as like as the hobby, because right now the hobby is still in its infancy,
Okay.
and a lot of people only really know just the modern players.
Okay, that
So yeah,
makes, because the way you end up putting it first, it was like that Serie A was overrated forever. Which, on that sense, I do not agree, and I guess you also do
yeah,
not agree with that. But lately, I probably would agree with you. I also don't think there is crazy prospects on Serie A. Maybe, like you said, Lautaro Martinez. I believe Lautaro Martinez is what, 24, 25 already, right?
I mean that's the wild thing. Yeah, he's like 25.
Yeah,
But think of like
so.
someone the same age as like Nkunku, and their prices are completely different because one's in
Mm.
Bundesliga and French, and one's Argentina and in Serie A.
Okay, no, it makes sense. I also can see what you mean there. Basically, that yeah, I mean, it's the hobby.
It
Well,
is, yeah.
honestly, sometimes ultra modern, and I think Lautaro Martinez could be a good example of that. Is sometimes a player do not have a lot of rookie material, and I think Lautaro Martinez is a good example of that. And to certain level, that's actually bad for the player, because if you have a hot prospect that have a top scrum, a top stadium, etc., people tend to navigate more into those guys because they understand the market a little bit better. I actually believe, funny enough, that the one of the rookie cards for Lautaro Martinez is a Panini Trouble one. Could be
Yeah,
wrong
no,
on
it
this.
is. It is. It is. It's one of his
Um,
earlier ones.
I believe he's numbered, so you can imagine.
No, it's called like New Sensation or something. It's one of the inserts features him. Because I was
But
looking into that.
do the inserts are numbered, the new sensations, or not?
They aren't numbered, but there are numbered versions, I think.
Okay. Again, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
since it's not a
This is off
market
the
that
top of my head, but
is
yeah.
egg. No, of course, it's not a market that I track that much. Like I was saying, Lex probably that rookie that people, you know what? If you want a Lautaro Martinez rookie, is the top Scrum, or the tops Merlin, or whatever, or even a Prism. Probably
Yeah.
the first Prism for him will be this one, right?
For World
2022.
Cup, yeah.
So maybe that becomes the most important card for Lautaro Martinez. There is a scenario that can happen. So
And it's
yeah,
interesting to think about because, like, on the other hand, you have some, and I mean, shouts to James for it's probably one of my favorite videos that he made. was the Darwin Núñez analysis. Like they're both great strikers, but like Núñez got the perfect line of like just enough like both I think have limited products, but Núñez going to Liverpool is like the perfect line. And I just feel like with Serie A now, like Vlahovic is a great example. Like I think that like he was very much overhyped in the hobby, not as a player. I think he's a very good player, but in the hobby, despite transferring to Juve, like I was actually thinking of picking up his stuff, and you know, market wise, thankfully I didn't, but picking up his stuff if he actually left Serie A. But the minute that he went to Juve, all of my interest in him honestly disappeared, because it's just like, what is he going to do there to get an American to talk about him? And I think that's the thing I'm most worried about is like unless you have an attachment to Serie A specifically, I don't think a lot of people will be talking about him, especially in the US where I'm going to shows actively and stuff like that.
Yeah, again, I don't have a great knowledge to share with you on this front. You know this. I don't have ultra moderns. I mean, saying I don't have is lying. I still have a couple of stuff, of course, but I don't think it's a market that I don't explore that much. I stay on vintage and pre-modern 99% of the time. But again, maybe there is, like your thoughts make sense to me. So maybe there is some opportunity going to other direction, not focusing that much on Italian players. So yeah. Will, any final thoughts?
Nothing. Just thanks for having me on. This was really fun. Like again, like you're a good friend of mine, so this just felt like us just chatting and stuff like that.
No, of course.
Yeah, no, it was just really, really fun. Glad I got to show you know, people some of my cards, because it is wild to think that like I'm, you know, under a year still since switching to soccer, and so it is wild.
And that's why I really wanted to have you on the podcast, because I think, look, it's great when I talk with experienced collectors. I think those are great podcasts, but I also think this podcast can actually almost inspire a lot of people, because look, not everyone that follows my channel is playing like they have been on the market for years. There is a lot of people also starting to collecting, and looking at you, then they might find some type of inspiration. Look, Will was basically like me 1 year ago, and look what Will is doing right now. So I think is important to share your history, and I thought it was a great podcast. So thank you so much for spending time with me on this podcast. And yeah, thank you so much again, and see you guys next time. Bye.
Yeah, bye everyone.